let's be clear, President Trump had actually called out Nigeria face to face with Buhari in 2018 when they met. The difference is Trump asked him nicely, stop the killing of Christians in Nigeria. It was direct engagement. And afterwards, they went back into the White House and they signed a trade agreement. So Trump was able to engage with him to resolve this issue and still do business with him. What has happened? After Trump left, the Democrats came in and they completely stopped an evaluation of Nigeria. And so, of course, when Trump came back, the situation had worsened since the last time that, he complained about it 7 years ago. And unfortunately, instead of addressing the issue, the Nigerian government started denying the facts. You see, when you are accused of stealing the goat meat, your response should not be, who would have stolen that kind of salty meat anyway? Because by your response, you admitted guilt. The Nigerian government, instead of saying, look, we are addressing the issue, this is what we have done, they say, it's not only Christians who are being killed, others are being killed. That is an admission of state failure. And this is why we are where we are now on this issue. But let me point out something very important. Trump has announced the designation, but then the next phase is sanctions. And I want to be clear that the first time sanctions were waived, and this time around it's not too late to waive sanctions. Now, let me just reassure listeners about the threat of military action. Laolu, you were the one as bureau chief of Guardian here in the US who reported exclusively that the US military set up a base in Niger that was covering terrorism in Nigeria. You were the only one in the world to report it. Guess what? Those two bases that America had in Niger are now lost. They were closed after the coup. So America has lost its footprint in West Africa to conduct special operations. So what that has resulted in is that Boko Haram has actually increased its operational footprint and pathology. So the situation is worse. And I have to tell you this. I do not believe that President Trump is going to unleash any attacks on Nigeria for two reasons. One, historically, the US military has been reluctant to fight side by side with the Nigerian government because they don't trust the Nigerian military. And one specific example is when they got intelligence on the location of the Chibok girls in the forest, they were cooperating with the Nigerian army under direction of President Obama. So the US government told the Nigerian army that they would gas the camp where Boko Haram was with the girls and then knock everybody out so that they could rescue the girls safely without exchange of gunfire. After they mapped out this plan, the next thing that happened, when the troops got to the camp of Boko Haram, they saw Boko Haram wearing gas masks. So the US realized that the Nigerian military had leaked the operational details to Boko Haram. This is why the US does not want to work directly with Nigeria with boots on the ground, because they do not trust the Nigerian army. Now, here is what we could be concerned of, and here is what I believe Trump was referring to. An American was abducted in Niger and was brought by the Fulani Islamist terrorists to Nigeria as they were about to sell him to Boko Haram. That was during the Trump first term. So Trump sent US Special Forces to Nigeria to go and rescue them. But to show you the level of cooperation between the US and Nigeria, Taj Patel then was the one who was to liaise with Nigeria and give Nigeria information that US troops were coming into their airspace. They literally stopped the SEAL team while they were in the air until they got clearance from Nigeria to enter Nigeria's airspace. They arrived in Sokoto, they killed the 6 Fulani terrorists who had abducted the American citizen. They captured one and handed him to the police, and then they flew back with their citizen. What happened then? Trump came and announced it, that we have just recovered Philip Walton in an operation who had been abducted. So why am I giving you this background? A few days ago, another American was abducted in Niger. And what Trump is saying, in effect, is that if this guy ends up being brought to Nigeria again by these Fulanis who abducted him, I will take action. So the likelihood, what he might mean, is that the location where this boy is found will be held liable. So my advice to whoever is in touch with these people, I know that Nigeria's NSA has been involved in ransoming people from Fulani bandits. Let that American that ride out be found and returned peacefully so that there will be no problem.
Well, let's just, for the sake of objectivity and balance, let's say that what you just said about the NSA is an allegation because that office has denied, ransom taking since it's not here to give a response. But to take your question to the next level, you also will recall, Mr. Ogebe, that it was the first presidency of Mr. Donald Trump that actually facilitated the sales of the military to Kanos to Nigeria, which was prevented before it got there. So clearly, I also don't think that Mr. Trump is playing games. And like you have said, he had also raised this issue informally with the former president. And so it's not as if he's just coming to the issue for the first time. So I wanted to ask you the next question, that what do you say, with this background, what do you say to the conspiracy theorists who argue that the Americans are only interested in the resources in Nigeria, particularly the solid minerals, the lithiums, and all the other stuff that they are in they have a significant need of? What's your response? You are there in Washington, D.C., Emmanuel.
Well, the funny thing is that the United States has more oil reserves than Nigeria. Secondly, President Jonathan told me himself that Nigerian oil is being smuggled into the US, and that he appealed to President Obama to help him investigate and stop the oil bunkering that was illegally going into the US. Now, of course, you know that the US has signed an agreement with Ukraine to have access to their earth minerals. Nigeria is not that critically needed by the US for the US to waste military manpower and resources to take over Nigeria. That is arrant nonsense. Our leaders in Nigeria are already stealing money from Nigeria and bringing to the West and buying houses. So they don't need to do that. But let me make something very clear. And the issue here is this, okay? When we're talking about foreign intervention in Nigeria, let us look at the facts. The people in northwest Nigeria invited Lakawura, a terrorist group, to come into Nigeria and assist them in fighting bandits, only for Lakawura to come in and become bandits themselves. Let's remember that El Rufai, a sitting governor, said that he traveled out of the country to go and pay off the Fulanis who are attacking Nigeria. And we saw what happened. They ended up moving into Nigeria and creating a terrorist syndicate nationwide. Let's remember that Buhari himself brought in Fulanis in the hopes of, destabilizing the country if he did not win the elections. So when you look at all that has been done by the other side, it's unfortunate if somebody now comes to you and says, try and save your own people from being killed. And you, as a government who have admitted that these are foreigners who are coming in and killing you, are beginning to insult the person that, no, it's not just Muslim Christians they're killing, it's Muslims too. Let me point out something else that's very important to note. Trump has said that he may stop aid to Nigeria. And here's the thing. Remember that Obama and co at a point tried to leverage their aid to say Nigeria must introduce and accept same-sex marriage and so on and so forth. And, like them doing that. This time around, it's a very different situation. He's saying, try and stop the killings of your own citizens. So it's not a question of their imposing Western ideologies and theories on Africa. It's a question of saying, save your own lives and value your own lives. So I think, everyone should be rest assured that we will not see a military escalation, but we should certainly at this time begin to take aggressive steps to engage. The sanctions can be waived. The federal government should set up a response team and bring in knowledgeable people like yourself. You were in the US, you know this issue. Bring in Kuka, bring in, knowledgeable people. Let's sit down and come up with a roadmap on how to avert sanctions.